the hand came out of nowhere. 1 second Linda Okafor was standing at the edge of the room with a glass of champagne and a conversation she was only half paying attention to. The next second a woman she had never seen before in her life was pointing at her across the gala like she was a problem that needed solving. That woman. Shin Boying's voice cut through the ambient noise of the evening with the particular precision of someone who had never once in her life been uncertain about anything. She has it. The room didn't stop immediately. It slowed, the way rooms slow when something is happening that people haven't fully processed yet but can already feel. Conversations dropped in volume. Glasses paused midway to mouths. Heads turned in the careful way of people who want to see without being seen looking. Linda turned slowly. She took in the room. The finger pointed in her direction. The expression behind it, certain, practiced, the expression of a woman who had decided and was not interested in reconsidering. The security guard already shifting his weight toward her from across the room. And she felt something rise in her chest that was not fear, was not confusion, was the very specific, very familiar feeling of a woman who knows exactly what is happening and exactly why it is happening and has approximately 3 seconds to decide what to do about it. I'm sorry. Her voice came out steady, measured. Are you serious right now? Boyang stepped forward. She was immaculate, deep red gown, hair swept up perfectly, the kind of woman who moved through expensive rooms like she had been installed in them. You were near the display. I saw you. I was standing in a room, Linda said, along with over 200 other people. The necklace is mine. Precise. Final. It has been mine since I walked through that door. It looks exactly like. Then perhaps, Linda said, and her voice had dropped now to something quieter and more dangerous than before, you should look more carefully before you point fingers at people in public. Boyan's eyes moved to the necklace around Linda's neck. Just for a moment. Just long enough. And something shifted in her expression, not doubt, something harder than doubt. The decision of a woman who had already committed to a position in front of a room and was not going to walk it back now regardless of what the evidence was doing. The security guard reached Linda. Ma'am, if you could just... Don't. She held up one hand. Not raised in aggression. Just final. A wall. Do not touch me. We just need to verify. I said do not touch me. The guard stopped. Boyoung moved closer. Her eyes were fixed on the necklace, with the specific focus of a woman who had stopped listening to anything else. And then, in one motion, before the room could process what was about to happen, her hand came forward. Linda saw it coming. She reached up and grabbed the wrist. Don't you dare. Too late. The necklace was already gone. One sharp motion. It left Linda's neck and hit the marble floor with a small clean sound that somehow cut through every remaining conversation in the room like a blade. And in that exact moment, everything changed. Stay with me because what happens next? Nobody in that room was ready for it. And if you're enjoying stories like this, take 1 second to like the video and subscribe. Linda stood with her hand still raised from where she had grabbed the wrist. Her neck bare. The necklace on the floor between them. And the entire room, 200 people, crystal glasses, string quartet that had stopped playing, holding its breath around them. Then Linda found her voice. You just put your hands on me. Quiet. The kind of quiet that expands to fill every corner of a room. In front of all these people, you grabbed me. Like I was nothing. Like I had no right to. You took something. I took nothing. The fury was controlled, but it was there, precise and devastating and entirely earned, the kind of anger that comes from a woman who has worked too hard and walked too far to be standing in a room she was invited into being treated like a suspect. I am a guest in this building. I have done nothing wrong. And you just put your hands on me. Security, please. Nobody, Linda said, turning to the guard with an expression that stopped him where he stood, is removing me from anywhere. I have done absolutely nothing wrong. The room was completely frozen. Then movement from the edge of the crowd. Junseo stepped forward, not hurried, not uncertain, just precise. His eyes dropped briefly to the floor near the display table. He bent once, picked something up, and straightened. The missing necklace caught the light in his hand. Silence deepened. This, he said calmly, was on the floor. A pause. His gaze lifted, not to Linda. To Boyoung. Exactly where it would have fallen. The shift in the room was immediate. Visible. Eyes turned. Calculations changed. The truth didn't need explaining anymore. Boyoung's composure cracked. Just for a moment. Just enough for the room to see it. Then she tried to recover. That doesn't mean she wasn't. Wasn't what? A voice from the crowd. Not loud. Just clear. Another murmur. Louder. She wasn't doing anything, someone else said. Boyoung looked around and found no allies. Just faces. Watching her. Waiting for an explanation that was not going to come because there wasn't one. She opened her mouth again. I was simply protecting the event. You grabbed a woman's necklace off her neck, a man near the front said flatly. In front of everyone. Linda looked at Boyoung across the space between them. One long, complete look. The look of a woman who has been violated in public and is choosing her final words very carefully because she knows the room is listening and she will not waste them. I hope, Linda said quietly, whatever you were trying to prove tonight was worth it. She bent down, picked up her necklace herself from the cold marble floor, held it in her closed fist, picked up her clutch from the table beside her, and she walked out. The crowd parted for her. Behind her the murmuring swelled into something that was no longer quiet. All eyes on Boyoung now. The woman who had pointed. The woman who had grabbed. The woman who had been spectacularly, publicly wrong and had doubled down anyway. She stood in the wreckage of it completely alone. She smiled through every single one of those comments. Every single one. Lee Junseo had been watching from the moment Boyoung pointed. He knew immediately what was happening. He also knew, because he had spent years learning exactly how Boyoung operated, that she had not needed evidence. She needed a target. And she had found one. By the time Linda turned to leave, Junseo was already moving. Not toward the crowd. Toward the door. He found her outside on the steps. Not crying. Not on the phone. Just standing in the cool night air with her clutch held in both hands, jaw set, chest rising and falling with the controlled breathing of a woman managing something very large and very hot in a very small space. He stopped a few feet away, close enough to be heard, far enough to give her room. Linda turned. She looked at him, really looked at him, the way she looked at everything, completely and without hurry. If you are here to apologize on behalf of that woman. I'm not, Junseo said. A pause. Then what do you want? To make sure you're all right. She studied him, looking for the performance in it, the obligation, the damage control, the careful management of a situation. She found none of those things. I'm fine, she said. I just need a minute. He nodded. He didn't move. He didn't fill the silence with things it didn't need. She looked at him again after a moment. You stepped in. Junseo nodded once. Someone needed to. And you were the only one in that room who didn't look unsure of yourself. Then you know I didn't take anything. I knew the moment I saw where it was. Linda held his gaze for a moment. Then she looked back out at the city, the quiet streets, the lights, the ordinary world moving along completely unbothered by what had just happened inside that building. Junseo stayed. That was what surprised her. He had said what he came to say, and he stayed anyway. Not crowding her space. Not performing concern. Just present in the way that some people are, solidly, without agenda. When her car arrived, she turned to him. Who is she to you? A pause. My father's wife. Linda absorbed that. Nodded once, the precise nod of someone filing information away for later, and got in the car. He went back inside. Junseo found Boyoung near the bar. Already recomposed. Already performing the relaxed ease of someone for whom nothing significant had occurred. He came to stand beside her without announcing himself, and she felt his presence before she registered it. Junseo. Come with me, he said quietly. He walked her to a corner of the room where no one could hear them and turned to face her with the stillness of a man who has already decided what he is going to say and is not arriving at a negotiation. What you did tonight was wrong. I was protecting the event. You grabbed a woman's necklace off her neck in front of 200 people based on nothing but assumption. It looked exactly like. It wasn't. Junseo held her gaze without blinking. And everyone in that room knows that now. And you will answer for it. Directly. To her. A pause. I am telling you that now so it doesn't surprise you later. He turned and walked away before she could respond. Boyoung stood in the corner alone with the expression of a woman who has no intention of doing what she has just been told, but who is, for the first time in a long time, not entirely certain of her footing. Linda Okafor had built her firm from nothing. Not from family money. Not from connections handed to her at the right dinner table. From work, the relentless, unglamorous kind that starts before the city is awake and ends long after it has gone quiet again. 6 years ago, she had one client, a studio apartment, and a drafting table pushed against the window for the light. She used to eat lunch at that table because leaving felt like wasted time. Now she had 12 employees, a portfolio that spoke before she did, and a reputation in her industry that had nothing to do with who she knew and everything to do with what she delivered on time, under budget, and better than anyone had expected. She was not famous in the way the people at that gala were famous. She moved through her world quietly, by design. But she had built something real with her own hands, and she carried herself accordingly, not loudly, not with performance, just with the settled confidence of a woman who has already proven what she needed to prove and has moved on to the next thing. She told her best friend about the gala the next morning over coffee at the small place around the corner from the office. She grabbed your necklace. She grabbed my necklace. Off your neck. Off my neck. In front of 200 people. Her best friend stared at her across the table. And you didn't. I held it together. Linda wrapped both hands around her cup. Barely. You should have. I know. She took a sip. But I didn't. And I'm not going back. She meant it completely. She put it behind her the way she put everything behind her, by working. By focusing on what was directly in front of her. By refusing to give a bad night more space in her life than it had earned. 3 weeks later, she was on a site visit for a new commercial project. A building in the early stages of a full redesign that her firm had won the commission for, the kind of project that reminded her exactly why she had started the firm in the first place. She was on the ground floor with her hard hat and her drawings, moving through the empty space, making marks on her clipboard, completely in her element. Voices from the upper level. She looked up. Junseo looked down. The recognition landed on both sides at exactly the same moment. He came down. Linda waited, not because she was eager, but because walking away from a coincidence was not something she did. Ms. Okafor. You know my name. I looked into it after that night, Junseo said. I wanted to make sure you were all right. Linda looked at him steadily. You looked into me. Yes. That's either very considerate or very strange. Probably both. Something moved at the corner of her mouth. Not quite a smile. The shape of one. I'm fine, she said. I was fine that night too. Once I got outside. I know. He paused. I'm sorry for what happened. You didn't do anything. I know. I'm sorry anyway. She looked at him for a moment, the directness of him, the way he said things without wrapping them in anything unnecessary. You're connected to this building, she said. Not a question. She had done her own research after that night. She always did her research. Silent investor. So that woman is my father's wife, Junseo said. Yes. Linda absorbed that. That must be complicated. It is. A pause settled between them. Comfortable, somehow, for two people who barely knew each other and had met under the worst possible circumstances. There's a coffee place 2 blocks from here, Junseo said. Nothing complicated. Just coffee. Linda looked around at the empty floor. The exposed wiring. The dust catching the afternoon light. Then back at him. Fine, she said. Coffee. Coffee became 2 hours. 2 hours became a second meeting, dinner this time, his suggestion, a quiet restaurant with no performance required from either of them. Then a third meeting. Then a fourth. They fell into a rhythm without naming it, the particular rhythm of two people who are both too self-aware to pretend something isn't happening and too careful to rush it. Junseo pursued Linda the way he did everything quietly, intentionally, without crowding her space. He showed up consistently. He remembered everything. The name of the project she was most proud of. The way she took her coffee. The thing she had said once about her first client that she hadn't realized she'd said with that much feeling. He didn't make a performance of remembering. He just remembered. Because he was paying attention. Linda noticed. She didn't say anything about it. But she noticed. She was also discovering slowly that Junseo was carrying something. The particular weight of a family that had changed shape when his father remarried. The quiet loneliness of a man who had built a world of considerable power around himself and found it surprisingly silent inside. He didn't speak about it directly, it came through in other things, in the way he talked around certain subjects, in the specific quality of his attention when she talked about work and purpose and building something that was entirely her own. She recognized it. Because she had her own version of it, the particular isolation of a woman who had worked so hard for so long that somewhere along the way she had forgotten to leave room for anything else. They were, she thought one evening walking back to her car, more alike than they appeared from the outside. She called her best friend. I actually like him, she said. Is that a problem? She considered it honestly. Ask me in 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, she already knew the answer. Junseo told her about his father over dinner one evening. Not critically ill, but slowing down in the particular way that makes certain things feel more urgent than they did before. His father wanted a family dinner. He wanted to meet Linda. Linda set down her fork. Your stepmother will be there. Yes. She looked at him directly across the table. Then I need you to understand something before I agree to anything. I am not going to sit at a table and absorb what happened at that gala a second time. I am not walking into that house to be treated like I don't belong in it. If she has something to say, she can say it to your face, not mine. I am setting that boundary now, clearly, so we understand each other. That's fair, Junseo said. I mean it. I know you mean it. He held her gaze. And I hear every word of it. She looked at him for a long moment. One dinner. One dinner. She arrived at the Lee family home on a Saturday evening in a fitted navy dress, hair up, composed, and entirely herself. Lee Chang-soo opened the door personally, and the warmth of him was immediate, the genuine, uncomplicated warmth of a man who had been hoping to like this person, and had just confirmed within the first 10 seconds that he did. Ms. Okafor. Welcome. Please come in. The house was warm and well lived in. The kind of home that had held a lot of life over a lot of years, and had not forgotten any of it. Linda liked it immediately. Boyoung was in the sitting room. Their eyes met across it. Recognition. Mutual. Immediate. And underneath it, on Boyoung's side, something that had not fully prepared itself for how composed Linda was. For how naturally she moved through the room. For how warmly Chang-soo was already speaking with her as though she had always been expected. Dinner began. The first half was surface, the careful, pleasant conversation of people feeling their way through a new arrangement. Chang-soo asked Linda about her firm with genuine curiosity and listened to the answers with the attentiveness of a man who respected the act of building something. Junseo sat beside her, steady and present. Linda was warm and articulate and entirely herself. Then Boyoung began. Small at first. Almost imperceptible. It must be nice, running your own little firm. Little, Chang-soo said pleasantly. Junseo tells me it's quite successful. Oh, of course. A smile that did not reach anything above the mouth. For its size. Linda met Boyoung's eyes across the table. Said nothing. Moved on. And your family, are they here in the city? Some of them, Linda said. We're spread out. And your parents, what did they do? My mother was a nurse. My father owned a small business. How sweet, Boyoung said. The word landing like something that was not sweetness at all. Linda held her gaze for a moment. Then she picked up her glass and took a calm sip and set it back down without responding. Then Boyoung's eyes moved to the necklace around Linda's neck. The same one. Linda had worn it deliberately, perhaps as a statement, perhaps simply because it was hers and she refused to hide it. Boyoung's gaze stayed on it one beat too long. That necklace, she said. Measured. Isn't that the one from? Yes, Linda said simply. Calmly. Completely. It is. The table went still. Boyoung looked at her across the dinner plates and the candles and the careful arrangement of a family meal and delivered her verdict. I just think there are some worlds that don't mix. Some tables where certain people simply don't belong. No matter how much effort they put in. Some things are just not a fit. The table waited. Linda picked up her glass. took one calm sip, set it down precisely. Then she looked directly at Boyoung. "You're right," Linda said calmly. She set her glass down with quiet precision. "Some people don't belong at certain tables." A pause. "But you're confusing access with worth." Her eyes held Boyoung's steady, unflinching. "You were given a seat." Another pause. "I built the table." She picked up her fork again. "But what would I know?" She picked up her fork and continued eating. The table was completely frozen. Changsu made a sound that was almost a laugh before he caught it. Boyoung's expression shifted. Something moved underneath the composure. And she reached for the sharpest thing she had left. "His mother," she said. Quietly. Deliberately. His real mother was a woman of culture. Of refinement. Of the right values. She would have never. The sound of Junseo's chair. Not loud. Just enough. Every head at the table turned. Junseo was looking at Boyoung with an expression that had nothing managed about it. Nothing controlled for the sake of the evening or the food going cold or the candles burning low between them. Never. His voice was quiet and absolute and filled the room completely. Say her name. Or speak about her. In that context. Ever again. The silence that followed was the heaviest thing in the room. Even Linda didn't move. Changsu looked down at his plate. Boyoung closed her mouth. The silence stretched. Long and final and impossible to recover from. Then Junseo looked around the table, at his father, at Linda, and the authority came back into his face. Controlled. Decided. "Not in this house," he said. "Not at this table. Not again." Dinner ended shortly after. Changsu apologized to Linda privately at the door, quietly, with genuine shame, with the particular expression of a man who knows something happened at his table that should not have and cannot entirely explain how he let it get there. Linda received it graciously. She could see clearly it was not his doing. Outside, Junseo walked her to her car. The night was cool and quiet around them. Linda wasn't angry. She was clear, the clean, settled feeling of a woman who has seen exactly what something is and is deciding what to do with the information. "She is not going to change," Linda said. "Not fully," Junseo said. "No. Then I need you to be honest with me about what that means." Junseo stood in front of her in the quiet of the driveway and looked at her with the directness she had come to trust more than almost anything else about him. "It means she doesn't get a vote," he said. "She is your father's wife." "My father has a vote. You saw him tonight. You saw how he looked at you." A pause. "Boyoung does not." Linda held his gaze. "And if this gets harder before it gets easier, then it gets harder." No hesitation. "I'm not going anywhere." She looked at him for a long, quiet moment. And she believed him, not because she needed to, not because it was easier, but because she had spent months paying close attention to the exact distance between what this man said and what he actually meant. She had never once found a gap. "Neither am I," she said. Changsu handled it. Not Junseo. The old man himself, slowing down but not in any way diminished, sat his wife down privately and said the things that had been building for longer than just that dinner. About the gala when Junseo had told him the full account of what happened. About what he had witnessed at his own table. About the woman his son had chosen and what it said about his son that he had chosen her. Boyoung had no audience. No room to perform in. Just her husband looking at her with the quiet disappointment of a man who had believed better of her and was no longer pretending otherwise. Linda had already decided she was done. Not just with Boyoung, but with everything connected to that night. Including Junseo. She had worked too hard for her piece to negotiate it now. Boyoung came to Linda's office 3 days later. Alone. During working hours. Into Linda's space, the office Linda had built, the walls covered in her drawings, the shelves lined with her models, every surface carrying the evidence of a woman who had made something entirely her own. Linda looked up from her drafting table and saw Boyoung standing in the doorway. She said nothing, just waited. Boyoung came in. She looked around the office slowly, taking it in. Then she turned. "I was wrong," Boyoung said. The words didn't come easily. That much was clear. At the gala. At dinner. A pause. "I misjudged you." Linda didn't respond immediately. She just looked at her, taking her time, the way she always did. Yes, Linda said finally. You did. Silence stretched between them. I'm not asking for anything beyond basic respect, Linda continued. No performance. No revision of what happened. Just respect. Boyoung held her gaze. You'll have it. It wasn't warm. It wasn't friendly. But it was real. That evening Junseo took Linda somewhere she had mentioned once in passing, casually, 3 conversations ago, not even certain he had been paying full attention at that particular moment. He had been paying attention. A rooftop restaurant with a view of the city she had spent 6 years building her life in. Quiet. No occasion named. No performance required from either of them. Just a table and the city and the particular ease of 2 people who have been through something together and come out the other side, still standing and still chosen. Linda looked at him across the table with the city spread out below them and felt something she had not felt in a long time. Still. Quietly, completely still. The particular stillness of a woman who has stopped waiting for the next problem and is simply here. You remembered, she said. I remember everything you tell me, Junseo said simply. She smiled. A real one, unguarded and warm and entirely hers. That's either very sweet, she said, or very dangerous. Junseo looked at her across the candlelight with the particular expression of a man who has found something he was not looking for and has decided, quietly and without announcement, that he is not letting it go. Then I'll be both, he said quietly. Linda laughed. And the city moved below them, unhurried, completely unbothered, belonging to no one's timeline but their own. And, just like that, the woman they tried to humiliate walked out with something none of them could touch. Not status. Not approval. Respect. If you stayed till the end, you already know, some people don't need to be given a seat. They build their own table. If you believe that, hit like and subscribe for more stories like this.